Driver. My friends say that I will one day have an accident because I drive my sports car recklessly. Good friends. Maybe they shouldn't ride with you. But I have done some research, and apparently minivans and larger sedans have lower accident rates compared to sports cars. Okay, that's not surprising. So, trading my sports car in for a minivan would lower my risk of having an accident. Notice this conclusion is causal. When it says the verb lower, if something lowers something else, then that means the first thing is having an effect on the second thing, right? It's causing it to go down. So would trading in his sports car for a minivan lower his risk of having an accident? That seems plausible, right? Like a sports car encourages you to drive fast and recklessly, and a minivan totally deflates that motivation, and so then you drive more safely. It's also, but our job when we're reading these arguments is to figure out why the conclusion is not proven. And so my reaction to this is, okay, trading in your sports car for a minivan might lower your risk of having an accident, but that's assuming it affects how you drive, right? Or like they're just more safe, right? Like they have like you can't accelerate. But again, that's coming back to affecting the way he drives. Sounds to me like he's the problem here. And so the fact that he trades in his sports car for a minivan does not necessarily suggest that his risk will go down. If he drives just as recklessly as he did before, then he's just as likely to get into an accident. In other words, this argument is going from correlation to causation because it's saying that there's a correlation between minivans and low accident rates, right? Apparently minivans and larger sedans have very low accident rates compared to sports cars. Okay, they have fewer accidents than sports cars. But that sentence doesn't tell us why. Is that because they're safer? Is that because they're uglier? Is that because the people who drive them tend to be family people, right? And thus just living a normal life as opposed to sports car playboys who like to drive really fast all over the place? Like, why is it that minivans and larger sedans have very low accident rates compared to sports cars? We don't know. It's just a correlation. There's a correlation between having a minivan and lower accident rates. Therefore, if I buy a minivan, then that's going to lower my accident rate. That thing is going to cause me to drive more safely. Not necessarily. If the car is not the cause of the low accident rate, if the drivers and the kind of people who like to buy minivans is the cause of the low accident rate, then trading one car for another will have no effect on this driver, right? This driver will continue to be risky. Now, I'm not saying the conclusion is necessarily false. I'm just saying it's not necessarily true. Okay, so the argument is most vulnerable to criticism on the grounds that, so most vulnerable to criticism definitely means we're looking at a flaw question, which means we're asking ourselves, is this describing what's happening, and is this a problem? Is this argument inferring a cause from mere correlation? Yep. There was a correlation between minivans and lower accident rates, and sports cars and higher accident rates, and then this person drew a causal conclusion that the minivan would cause his accident rate to go down. Keep this open. B, relies on a sample that is too narrow. No, the sample is not too narrow because the conclusion is not about other people, it's just about this driver. So because the sample deals with this person and the conclusion is about this person, it's not too narrow. Misinterprets evidence that a result is likely as evidence that the result is certain. For this to be correct, you'd have to have, say, something that says like, minivans are likely to lower my risk of having an accident. Therefore, they will lower my risk for having an accident. That's not what we see here. We didn't see any of that kind of evidence in the premises. We just saw there's a correlation between lower accident rates and minivans. So this is out. It's not describing what happened here. D, mistakes a condition sufficient for bringing about a result for a condition necessary for doing so. Okay, so this is describing a false contrapositive. This is where you have an if-then statement and the argument confuses the if statement with, or the if clause with the then clause gets confused. We don't have any if-then statements here in the premises. We just have a correlation. So this is not describing what's happening. You do want to get really familiar with this flaw though, so that when you see it, you know the answer is correct, and when you know you don't see it, you know this answer is wrong. So many people get stuck on D and trying to figure out what D means. Look, you have to have if-then statements, or at least a hidden if-then statement in the original argument in the premises, and someone has to be getting confused about which clause is the if clause and which clause is the then clause. We don't have that here, so D is wrong. Relies on a source that is probably not well informed. Yeah, the driver does not seem well informed. Actually, no, I take that back. The driver is well informed. The driver knows about this correlation between minivans and accident rates. What the driver is probably not well informed about is that it's just a correlation. But even if this is true, it relies on a source. The driver relies on a source that is probably not well informed. Even if this is true, why is this wrong? So, part of me is saying, well, the driver does seem to be well informed, right? The source is the driver himself. I've done some research. So the sources, we don't even know what the sources are that this person is relying on. If he's relying on himself, then you could say maybe he's not well informed about causation, but that's like going back to answer choice A, right? Ultimately, the problem is the person is inferring a cause from your correlation. Otherwise, the driver is well informed. So either way, this answer choice is wrong. Either it's not describing what's happening, or it is describing what is happening, but that's not the flaw, right? The ultimate problem is that not that the person is not well informed, but they fail to see that correlation does not necessarily lead to causation, which would bring us back to answer choice A. Anyways, I don't mean to talk so much about answer choice E, but A is correct.